A 10-year-old black boy watches in tears as a white police officer takes his beloved German Shepherd, claiming the dog couldn't belong to someone like him. But when the boy's father, an FBI agent, steps in, a fight for justice begins, exposing deep-rooted prejudice and shaking an entire community. What happens next will leave you speechless. Let's start from the beginning. 10-year-old Michael Jackson and his German Shepherd, Rambo, were the kind of duo that seemed destined to be together. The small park near their South Carolina neighborhood was their haven, a place where Michael's infectious laughter blended perfectly with Rambo's excited barks. The summer sun bathed the scene in golden light, and Michael's bright red t-shirt made him easy to spot as he darted across the grass, throwing a frisbee that Rambo always seemed to catch midair. Rambo was swift and agile, his glossy black and tan coat gleaming as he bounded across the field, his tail wagging like a metronome of pure joy. Michael's connection with Rambo was forged the day his father, Daniel Jackson, surprised him with the pup on his 7th birthday. As an FBI agent, Daniel often worked long hours and valued his privacy, especially in their predominantly white community, where few knew the full scope of his work. Yet he made sure his son had a companion who would not only protect him, but also keep him company during his quieter moments. For Michael, Rambo was more than a dog. He was a best friend, a confidant, and a family member. That bond was tested one sunny afternoon when Officer Bradley, a towering figure in a crisp uniform, strode into the park. His presence immediately altered the atmosphere, his rigid posture and cold gaze cutting through the warmth of the day. Michael froze as Bradley's eyes locked onto Rambo, suspicion darkening his face. "Whose dog is this?" Bradley's voice was sharp, filled with accusation. Michael hesitated, then answered politely, "He's mine, sir." Bradley's gaze narrowed. "A dog like this? You can't afford it. Did you steal him?" The word struck Michael like a blow. "No, sir. He's my dog, I swear." Without another word, Bradley grabbed Rambo's leash. Michael clung to it desperately, tears streaming as he begged, "Please don't take him. He's my best friend." Ignoring the boy's cries, Bradley loaded Rambo into his squad car. The image of Rambo's confused, betrayed eyes haunted Michael as the car disappeared down the road. Michael burst through the front door, his face streaked with tears, and ran straight into his father's arms. His sobs were raw, his words tangled in gasps as he recounted what had happened in the park. Daniel Jackson, a man known for his composure under pressure, felt a wave of cold fury wash over him. His usual calm demeanor hardened into a steely resolve as he listened, stroking Michael's back to soothe him. "Michael," Daniel said firmly, his voice low and steady, "don't worry. We're going to fix this." With his son still trembling in the next room, Daniel pulled out his phone and began making calls. His voice remained controlled, but there was an unmistakable edge to it, like the quiet before a storm. Each question he asked was precise. Each response met with a clipped acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Michael paced the living room, his small fists clenching and unclenching, as he imagined Rambo alone, scared and confused in a strange, unfamiliar place. By evening, Daniel had gathered all the information he needed. Officer Bradley had filed a report, falsely claiming Rambo was a stray, and the dog had been taken to the local animal pound. The fabrication was infuriatingly clear, and Daniel knew it needed to be addressed decisively. The next morning, Daniel dressed in his sharpest, dark suit, his polished shoes clicking with purpose as he entered the police station. The buzz of activity slowed as officers and staff turned to watch him stride past. His presence was commanding, his every movement calculated and deliberate. "I'd like to speak with the precinct captain." Daniel announced to the desk officer, pulling out his FBI credentials. The badge gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, leaving no doubt about his authority. Inside the captain's office, Daniel's tone was firm, cutting through the captain's nervous attempts at pleasantries. "I'm here to discuss the wrongful seizure of my son's dog." The captain stammered, visibly uneasy. There must be some misunderstanding. Daniel's gaze was icy. "No misunderstanding. I expect Rambo returned immediately, and I demand an explanation for Officer Bradley's actions." The room fell silent, the gravity of the situation unmistakable. News of Daniel Jackson's presence spread quickly through the police station. Whispers passed from desk to desk, carrying the weight of unease. Officer Bradley, oblivious to Daniel's position with the FBI, initially dismissed the situation as a minor misunderstanding. When summoned to the captain's office, Bradley walked in confidently, only to freeze when his eyes fell on Daniel's badge, gleaming on the desk. Bradley's posture stiffened as he stumbled over his words. I thought the dog might be stolen," he stammered, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "It didn't seem like a dog, for someone like him." Daniel's expression hardened, his piercing gaze fixed on Bradley. His voice, though calm, carried a razor-sharp edge. "Someone like who? My 10-year-old son? Are you suggesting he's incapable of owning a dog because of the color of his skin?" The room fell deathly silent. Officers in the vicinity, drawn by the tension, lingered near the doorway, but avoided eye contact with either man. The air was thick with discomfort as Bradley shifted nervously under Daniel's scrutiny. His prejudice was laid bare, and there was no escaping the gravity of his words. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his presence commanding. "I'll give you one chance to fix this," he said, his tone cutting through the silence. "Return the dog immediately, and I'll consider handling this internally. If not, I'll ensure this precinct faces a full investigation for racial misconduct. And trust me, the FBI doesn't take this kind of behavior lightly." The captain, who had been quietly observing, sprang into action, his voice tight with urgency. "Release the dog at once," he barked, dispatching an officer to the pound. But Daniel wasn't finished. "That's not enough," he said firmly. "I expect a formal apology for my son. There will also be a full review of Officer Bradley's actions, and this precinct will undergo mandatory bias training. This won't happen to another child." The captain nodded reluctantly, aware that Daniel had the authority and resolve to back up every word. As Bradley stood silently, his face pale, the message was clear. Accountability was no longer optional. That evening, the Jackson household buzzed with an energy that had been absent for days. The front door creaked open, and the sound of claws skittering against the floor filled the air as Rambo bounded inside, his tail wagging furiously. Michael's eyes lit up, his face breaking into a wide smile. He dropped to his knees, arms outstretched, and Rambo leapt into his embrace, barking happily. Michael buried his face in Rambo's fur, tears of relief spilling down his cheeks. "I missed you so much," Michael whispered, clutching the dog tightly. Rambo responded with a series of licks to his cheek, his excitement palpable. Daniel knelt beside them, placing a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. "I told you we'd fix it," he said softly, his voice filled with warmth and pride. Michael looked up at his father, his eyes shining with gratitude. The Jackson family's ordeal, however, wasn't over. The next day, the story broke in the local news. Reporters highlighted the injustice Michael had faced and Daniel's resolute fight for his son's rights. The incident ignited conversations in the community, forcing residents to confront uncomfortable truths about prejudice and accountability. Some neighbors, who had previously kept their distance from the Jacksons, expressed regret for not stepping in sooner. Officer Bradley faced the consequences of his actions. An internal investigation led to his suspension, and the precinct announced new measures to address racial bias, including mandatory training and a public commitment to fostering equality. The story became a catalyst for change, sparking discussions far beyond the walls of the police station. For Michael, the experience was transformative. Though the incident left an indelible mark, it also deepened his connection to his father and Rambo. Daniel's unwavering defense showed Michael the power of standing up for what's right, even in the face of systemic challenges. In the weeks that followed, Michael and Rambo resumed their park visits. But something was different. Neighbors who once avoided the Jackson family now stopped to chat or offer a smile. Children asked to pet Rambo, and adults nodded in acknowledgement as they passed by. Change was slow, but it had begun. For Michael, those small shifts were victories worth celebrating, a reminder that even one voice could inspire a community to do better.